Mr. Stein.
Here.
Mr. Homburg.
Here.
Dorschel and Mr. Kugel are excused.
Are vacant. Move on to item number 3, approval of minutes from January 11th, 2016. Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Edits, comments? Mr. Homburg?
On page 1, under approval of minutes, it says Mr. Kugel made the motion, but he was absent.
Okay.
And I had Griff down in my notes.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else remembers, but I had written down Griff.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Homburg?
That's it.
On page 5, last sentence, it says, if it is not crowded, it should be if it is sprinkled, or if there is a sprinkler system, use that.
Okay.
Less fire service is needed. And on page 6, the first sentence, if it is not senior housing, if it is senior housing, more paramedic services needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the sentence following that, so in some cases it is a positive tax impact, and on others it does not. It has a positive tax impact, and in others it does not. Any other edits, or seeing none? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Anyone here who wishes to appear in an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we move on to item number 5, unfinished business. Consideration of action on replacement of the existing signage plan for the Southtown 2 building at 2401 West Broadway with a new signage plan dated 1/25/16 as requested by owner David Israel, Learcy and Company, and consideration of action on request by Jackson Hewitt Tax Service for approval of a sign permit request for 2401B West Broadway, represented by Finishing Touch Signs. This was tabled on 1/11/16. Do we have a motion to remove it from the table?
Move we raise it from the table.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, Sonia?
The Plan Commission requested a few changes to the sign itself, including removal of the second line that said tax service, or reconfiguring the sign so that it was not 2 lines, and then also to make the entire sign one sign type of individual channel letters rather than individual letters plus cabinet sign. So those changes were made, and the Plan Commission also requested that the owner request a revision to the signage plan overall rather than go through individual variances for tenants. So David Israel is here tonight to request that the revisions for the signage plan, and the conditions are recommended as listed in the staff report and in the signage plan submitted. The only change to the signage plan was to remove the requirement for specific colors, and instead it says per tenant selection. And then there were also some outdated specifications that would have been for neon signs that were removed. Otherwise, it's essentially the same.
Thank you. Did you want to?
Good evening.
Welcome.
My name is David Israel, owner of the property and owner of Learcy and Company. And we are here to request a variance or the change in the sign plan so we can get it approved for Jackson Hewitt.
Thank you. Commission members, comments? Mr. Homburg?
In your staff report, Sonia, you said we should discuss whether or not the individually lit letters should be channel mounted or not.
Thank you. Yes.
I think that's almost more of a decision for the owner of the property. It's nice when it's on a raceway, because then when you have a new tenant, you don't have more holes in your building. You can remount it to the raceway. So what we see a lot is a raceway painted to blend in with the building, and then you got your letters mounted on it. You can run new wires, you can put new letters up, and it makes a lot more flexible for your space.
I agree with
So
you.
I'm not sure I would sit here and tell him that he had to do one or the other. I would recommend in a multi-tenant space like that, you probably want to consider a raceway.
And this sign we're talking about is on the raceway. So
I don't believe it was on a raceway in the previous
No.
meeting, was it?
minutes from the last meeting, Julie?
I don't think it was, because I would have noticed it.
They looked to be individually lit, and then it was like a box sign down at the bottom that's a tax service, if I
Right.
remember
Yeah,
correctly.
it was not on a raceway.
Okay. Other comments, commission members? Ron?
I think it's improved. No further comments.
Okay. Brian?
It appears as if on the north and the south elevations, the sign is different. Is that correct? So on one, it has the tax service identified, and the other, it does not.
Yes.
And so the 12-inch letter is for the north elevation, so intended to be for folks traveling down Broadway. And if that's the case, the tax service is 3 1/4 inches tall. And so I just indicate that for readability, if that's the space that it wants to be in. And I know it seems like we're doing the one piece, which is the signage plan, and then we're doing a second piece, which is the sign. So it's kind of muddied together in the first place. I like the idea of the signage package change to say some of this can be dealt with at staff level and doesn't need to come here. So that part's that. The second piece is readability from the Broadway side for the 3-inch lettering.
Okay. Mr. Ganser?
So none of the other signs on this property or all of Southtown have raceways, is that correct? This would be the first.
I'm not sure about that.
I think that's probably the case.
Typically, in these small centers, or in a center like this where it's multi-tenant, there may be, 6, 8, 10 tenants. Most of the time, the signage, we have signage requirements. We really don't tell them or require them to put them on raceways, or they can individually mount them. We stay away from box signs, which are very old-fashioned, but we all want individual letters, and the color issue is an issue that's with every tenant. Every national tenant wants their color issue, and they won't lease if you can't give them their color.
Well, and I think the channel letters are great that you're using, and I'm one of those in favor of allowing different colors. Aesthetically, though, I just want to note that though I agree with Mr. Homburg in terms of its ease of mounting and remounting letters, aesthetically, I have a real problem with raceways. And I think it's nice as I look at the other signs, or at least the two that we can see in the photograph, that they're not mounted, they're directly mounted to the building. And that is certainly my preference, for whatever it's worth.
What I'd like to do is break this into two action steps. The first one is the consideration of action on replacement of the signage plan. Do we have a motion for that action?
I'll move approval as outlined by staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion on,
So that would just be condition 1, correct?
There are 4 conditions.
Yeah, but condition 1 pertains to, actually, condition 1 and 4, but condition 2 and 3 are specifically for the second action then.
And they would apply to all future tenants in this building
Okay, so
as a signage.
it'd be all
plan.
4 of them then. Okay.
so it would be all 4?
Yes.
Okay.
And then for clarification, if there is no clarity added for whether it should be raceway or individual flush mounted, then the tenants in the future have the option to choose either one. Okay.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Second course of action is the request by Jackson Hewitt Tax Service for approval of their sign. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval given the previous action item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor
Could I
say...
ask one
Yes.
question? I'm just curious, Dale, if there is a raceway and it's painted to match the background of the building, is that something that really bothers you? So that you and I would see it, but most people wouldn't see it.
I won't argue with that. I can only base it on
Yeah.
what I see. And the one thing is that it will never match the building. You know, it may be cream, but it will never match the building. And so, you know, aesthetically I struggle with them, but I go along with the commission and their experience on it. So,
Could I ask for a friendly amendment then, that if the applicant uses a raceway that is painted to blend with the building?
Maker of the motion, are you comfortable with that?
Yep.
The reason I do that is so it's not meant to be an accent piece or something when somebody else comes in, that if there is a raceway, which I believe is to your benefit, that it just blends in as best it can and the sign is what stands out.
We won't have a problem with that as long as, can those raceways be painted?
Yes, I mean,
I
I guess the specific color probably.
Well, the colors, as long as they can be painted, I just want to make sure it's a metal that will, will hold the paint.
Yep.
The color, we can figure that out.
Okay. And Rob?
I think in some cases it'll look better. In this specific case, I think a white raceway anchored at the bottom actually looks better, personally. I know not all signs are going to, and in some cases I think painting the raceway to match the building, or as close as you can get it, will improve the aesthetics of the sign. But if I'm looking at this sign right here, I like it. I mean, as far as raceways go.
Mr. Israel, what would your preference be, to have individual letters or the raceway?
My first preference is always have individual letters. But in today's world, where there's not a lot of smaller tenants out there, and the individual letters are more expensive than the raceway,
Yeah.
you know, we're just happy to have the tenants come to us. As long as it's individual letters, whether it's on a raceway or against the building, really don't care. And I agree with what you said, is that almost nobody ever looks at there. They see the sign and just, don't forget the sign companies, not sign companies, but the Jackson Hewitt wants to make this sign show Jackson Hewitt. They don't want to see the raceway either. They want to see Jackson Hewitt, and that's pretty much true for all the sign companies. So most of them are almost all well designed, and you really very rarely see the raceway unless you're looking for it.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Safe travels.
Terribly sorry to interrupt. A citizen just called upstairs at the library and she said that she can see the video feed, but there's no sound. I don't know if anybody knows how to put the microphones on. Or...
They will know in that room.
And she's complaining
Thank
about
you.
that?
yeah, I was gonna say, it's like best case scenario.
We gotta find out who that person is.
Sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
No, thank
It's my
you.
wife making sure I'm here.
Never touch this red button.
Thanks.
Doesn't look like the hockey rink.
Yeah.
I look back and I must have left my
Make sure I'm not
picture
the
that
ball.
on the
Look at
desk
it again?
somewhere.
Look at it again?
One of the cars named the library or the gym or something.
Yeah.
I have everything else. I have the cover sheet. I don't know what I did with.
Somebody actually watches this.
I'm amazed.
Yeah, so am I.
Must be a slow night.
We good to go?
They have sound inside, and the recording will have sound, but they're unable to fix it on the other end unless someone's in the studio. So they say that live we won't be able to get sound.
Maybe
Hold up
it's
the
good
sign.
All right. We'll move on to 5B, which is consideration of action on sign permit request by James Andrews, property owner, and Alvin Huddleston, AH Graphics, Arts and Signs, for a landscape ground sign for the building at 6203 Monona Drive. This was tabled on 1/11 of 16. Do we have a motion to remove it from the table?
Move we pull it from the table.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Yeah, pulling it off the table.
Okay. All right, Sonia?
Yes, yeah, I was just gonna clarify.
That means we can talk about it again. All right.
So there were multiple revisions requested to the sign last time, and I've outlined in the bullet points where it was changed and where it was not. A couple of ones to note. The second bullet point, the applicant submitted an option A and an option B. One had red letters on the Legacy Martial Arts logo and one had black. So I request that one of them is approved. And another one to note is 5 bullet points down. The landscaping plan did show a plan view, but it still shows daylily and spirea, and it's not really clear how many each of those would be planted. So if there's any additional clarification requested on that. And then the next bullet point was clarification on the location, and Public Works Director looked at the right-of-way information from the Monona Drive reconstruction and confirmed that the sign islands are not on private property of someone of a different property. So approval is recommended as noted in the staff report.
Becca, did you want to?
Yeah.
Come on up.
You
Welcome.
can come up, but you can't speak.
Yeah, you can speak, you just won't be heard.
Bear with me, because I have that. I just don't have a copy. That's wonderful. Thank you. So
Did you want to say or just be available for questions?
I just want to be available for questions.
All righty. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Commission members, comments? I'll start on that end. Mr. Homburg?
Well, I like it a lot better. I think the sign, your sign is much more readable now for somebody driving down the road. I know it might not be your exact colors you originally picked, but I can see that and I get it. As far as the logo, if I had that on my clothing, if I had that on my uniform, if that was on all the branding and everything, I get that you can't really read it, but I would recognize it because I know it, and that's what I'm looking for. And when I look at the black and white versus the red, it reads differently. So if that's my logo and that's my branding, I'm looking for that studio, I see it, and I recognize it immediately. That's where I'm going. So I would tend to let them have the colors they want on that logo.
Thank you. Rob?
I would agree. As far as the Legacy logo, it's not going to be that readable, but if that's their logo, I have no problem with red versus black. And then the landscape plan, that's really not existent, but I think that could be handled by city staff probably.
So maybe a condition of approval to have the final landscape plan approved by staff? Something along those
Yes.
lines? Mr. Ganser?
I think it's fine. I like it with the red on martial arts. Looks good.
Brian?
Much improved.
Okay. Yeah, do we have a motion?
Move approval with recommendation 1 is written by staff, recommendation 2 that final approval of landscaping is by staff and is required to be planted by May of 2016.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Yes.
All those in favor say, Mr. Homburg?
Just so you understand what that means is it looks really nice in the picture,
Right.
but there's no description of how many and where and everything, so staff has to approve the final amount and placement of the landscaping around it.
Perfect.
End of the day, we just want it to look nice around there. It is, in fact, a landscape ground sign.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
I missed who the first and second one.
Mr. Homburg was the first, and I think Dale
Dale
second.
seconded it. Dennis did.
Dennis did. All right, move on to C, which is consideration of Resolution 12516, recommending the adoption of the City of Monona Comprehensive Plan 2016 to 2036. Sonia.
Thank you. Could you switch the projector, please, to the laptop?
Evening now.
And talk about
Oh,
Stella.
whose dog is that?
It's my dog. I have slides, and there are a lot of them, but I'm not going to dwell on them for too long. I'm going to focus on the 5 slides on the highlights of the plan, which are at the beginning, and then 5 slides about the implementation plan, which are at the end, and then a little bit on issues and opportunities for each of the elements, which are the slides in green. And then the rest of the information is there if we want to discuss it further, or if anyone from the public not here doesn't have any questions. April. City Administrator. So we'll just start going through them. And then at the end of this, the action item on the agenda is that we'll need a majority vote of the commission in order to recommend adoption to City Council. Worth noting on this slide is that written in the resolution, this is for a complete repeal and replacement of the 2004 plan, and showing that we've come a long way from the zoning code and master plan of 1980. So highlight number 1, we've reduced the plan by 64 pages, making it a little bit more readable. All of our data was updated to the most recent data sets, and we now have new shape files for all of our GIS data and the maps. A big win here, we adopted a new future land use map to guide policy decisions over the next 20 years. It's more compliant with the requirements of the statute and provides a clear policy direction when developers come in or when the Plan Commission is making decisions. This also helped us identify the need to review and update the zoning map in the more short-term future so that it is consistent with this new future land use map. Sustainability was integrated throughout the plan. This recognizes the city's recent commitments to sustainability efforts, from a resolution adopted in 2012 to being a Green Tier Legacy community to other efforts. These were all identified with the logo shown on the screen throughout the plan. Recognizes that sustainability is an interconnected issue rather than adopting it as a separate standalone chapter. Highlight number 4, we were able to look into some data on housing and identify that there's an issue there worth discussing further. So a couple of slides that illustrate some new developments with Traced on the Water, looking at it from the Yahar Cove Boardwalk, Fairway Glen on Monona Drive in one of our commercial corridors, and one of our older 1960s multifamily developments that we could look at if and how rehabilitation efforts might be beneficial. Highlight number 5, I think the implementation element is really improved from the 2004 plan. And this gives us a clear list of priorities to tackle over the next 5 to 10 years. So an overview of the demographics. Plan Commission identified and agreed that our population is stabilizing. The Department of Administration estimate for 2015 was 7,440, and the actual population was about 5% higher than that at 7,833. So rather than declining as projected, it is in fact stabilizing. We have the oldest population in Dane County. Our median age is 10 years older than the county. We have a lot of individuals over the age of 65 that are living alone. Household characteristics are important as we start researching this housing policy issue that we identified. We have the lowest household size in the county at 1.99. There's been a decline in owner-occupied housing units. There's a low vacancy rate and regional demand for multifamily rental. All characteristics that will help us in our research over the next couple of years. Our educational attainment is on par with the county. There's nothing too earth-shattering in these employment characteristics listed on the screen. 4,430 residents participate in the labor force, per capita income of 34,000, median household income of 50,000 on 2010 census data. We
Why
have.
didn't you say anything about that slide? God.
Some of the beautiful new developments here in the city of Monona.
Yes. Lake home, a ranch home, new high-density multifamily, and a small lot single-family home subdivision. We have over 4,000 housing units, 4% increase over the past decade. Monona, out of those housing units, 53.9% are single-family detached in their particular housing type. Compared to Dane County, we're about even with the Dane County average on that particular percentage of housing type. Housing tenure, we've been discussing the declining owner occupancy rate from 60.9% owner occupied in the year 2000 to 59.5 in 2010 with the ACS data, which is more of an average and has a bigger margin of error, but nonetheless showing a continued decline to 53.7%. Relative to surrounding communities, we are very close to the average in Dane County with owner occupancy. Have a little bit more than Middleton, Fitchburg, and Madison, but trail by about 20% owner occupancy compared to DeForest, McFarland, and Cottage Grove. We have an aging housing stock. 80% of Monona's housing stock was built over 30 years ago. So in summary for housing, we have an aging housing stock with opportunity for rehabilitation, specifically in multifamily developments. No new opportunities for larger single-family subdivisions, but could explore small single-family subdivisions or single-family home rehabilitation. We've already looked at the demographic and household characteristics, things that will impact future development, including the owner occupancy, small household size, older population, aging housing stock, market demands, and shifting preferences. We'll also continue to implement Renew Monona, our loan program for single-family home improvements. Transportation. This element includes an inventory of our current system. It includes transit route with 2 different routes. We have 10 miles of designated bicycle lanes on our arterial routes, Monona Drive and Broadway, and 14.5 miles of sidewalks, mainly on our arterial routes and some collector streets. Overall issues and opportunities for transportation, we want to make sure we allocate sufficient resources in the future for this system. We want to capitalize on our regional accessibility and connectivity to the Madison region and other major metropolitan areas like Milwaukee and Chicago. Our continued redevelopment efforts on Monona Drive, looking to create a sense of place as described in our Monona Drive urban design guidelines and other redevelopment plans. And we'll also look at multimodal transportation system improvements for where it's appropriate for bicycle and pedestrian improvements, and also monitor any possible jurisdictional transfer from the county on county highways, BB, Monona Drive, and BW Broadway.
What is, I saw that in the, what does modal mean? But it had something to do with fabric.
I'm not sure about fabric connection there, but different modes of transportation, so single occupant vehicles to transit, like a bus, or bicycle and pedestrian. So different modes of transportation.
I see. Okay.
Okay. Utilities and community facilities. This element inventories our water supply. It notes that there was a water study plan completed in 2013 that shows that we are good on well capacity and storage capacity at least through the year 2035. Outlines our existing infrastructure for wastewater treatment. The city operates a stormwater utility fund and charges fees per property based on impervious surface areas. The mayor is really proud of this next statistic that we have 5 out of the top 10 priority stormwater outfalls in the county. And the reason he's proud of that is because we can get grant monies to help improve them. So we're working on improving those outfalls. We are currently meeting the standards in our municipal separate storm sewer permit for reduction in total suspended solids. Did I say that correctly?
Pretty close.
Okay.
Separate storm sewer system. That's why it's S4, there's four
Okay, I
S's.
missed one of the
and four
S's.
S's.
Yep, okay. Community facilities. The major issue to look at is aging facilities. There's been a lot of talk about public safety building. This Bray study was completed in 2012, though I'm not positive how much it's been discussed at committee levels. I think it was at the ad hoc facilities committee, but that was before my time. So at least identification of these facilities as aging and that they'll likely need some long-range planning and attention in the near future. So again, maintain the wide range of utilities, facilities, and services, investment and maintenance in aging facilities, and special attention to stormwater management. Natural and cultural resources. This element inventories our groundwater, watersheds, surface waters, floodplains, wetlands, environmentally sensitive areas, forests, habitat, parks, open space, and recreation. We've been a Tree City USA since 1990 and exceed the number of acres of parkland per 1,000 residents as recommended by the National Recreation Parks Association. Cultural resources, we have 24 City of Monona landmark properties. We have 4 sites that are on the state or national register, including the Royal Airport site, the Tompkins Brindler Mounds at Woodland Park, the Outlet Mound, and the Rindall or Monona Mound, which is on the north end of Monona Drive. We have 9 surviving mounds at 6 sites. And this photo is of the Tower of Memories at Roselawn Park. It's a historic photo before all the trees grew. Issues and opportunities in natural and cultural resources. We have a wide variety of natural and cultural assets. Opportunity on natural side is address water quality, preserve environmental corridors and natural lands, preserve our extensive park system, and encourage the level of recreational programming that we have. Balance competing demands where they exist between economic development and open space preservation, and protect, enhance, and perpetuate our historical and cultural heritage. Economic development. Again, economic-based data with our labor force numbers, our top 3 occupational industries, commuting patterns. 29.4% of Monona jobs are held by Madison residents. Monona residents held over 3,000 jobs outside of Monona, and 65% of Monona residents work in Madison. Economic development programs, we have 9 tax increment financing districts, as shown on the map. Renew Monona is our owner-occupied single-family home loan program for improvements, which is funded by leaving a TIF district open 1 additional year in order to distribute those funds throughout the community for this program. And it's a revolving loan program, which keeps it going as those Renew Monona loans are paid back. It's a 10% or a 0% loan deferred for 10 years. That's paid back at sale or at 10 years or at refi. We also have a facade improvement grant program funded by TIF districts, which is a $10,000 grant to property owners on Monona Drive to improve the facades of their commercial buildings. Our Community Development Authority, Monona Eastside Business Alliance, Monona Grove Businessmen's Association, and other state and federal programs help support our economic development efforts. So overall issues and opportunities. We're landlocked, and we want to maintain an appropriate mix of housing and commercial tax base, monitor and implement our TIF districts, and support existing businesses while attracting new businesses where appropriate. Intergovernmental cooperation is to maintain and establish those mutually beneficial relationships that we have, and listed on the slide are some examples of those things. One where we identified an opportunity that we could improve is the last one, redevelopment of shared corridors with possibly a closer look at urban design and signage standards on Monona Drive with the City of Madison. Land use. The element inventories, our current land uses, our land use patterns, our existing tools and regulations, our design standards, possible conflicts, trends, redevelopment opportunities. Out of all of our land area, 35.5% of it is in residential. Out of that 35.5% of residential, 31.5% is covered by single family. Commercial at about 11%, street right-of-way over 18%, and outdoor recreation 20%.
So single family is 31.5 of the total, not 31% of the 35%.
Correct.
Thank you.
The land use element also outlines redevelopment opportunities, which are bound by our assumptions and projections that we discuss in the rest of the plan, including demographic changes, household characteristics, and our future housing developments. It should say redevelopment areas include the north end of Monona Drive, particularly across from the high school, where the city acquired a few properties to help with that redevelopment plan number 7. The East Broadway corridor and redevelopment area number 6, which includes the areas around Menards and Meritor and UW Health and the Whitehorse properties. The Monona riverfront site between Broadway and Bridge Road, as well as the overall waterfront district, which is more the central part of the Broadway corridor. The Owen Road and Anthony Place area, which is in redevelopment area number 5, and the Southtown area, possibly in the future. Took a few screenshots of the future land use map to show the policy here for the next 20 years, with the East Broadway corridor shown in red for commercial, the area around Falcon Circle peeled back, some multifamily so as not to indicate a major transformation of that neighborhood from where a lot of it is currently single family. This is in the middle of Monona Drive, let's see, with Owen Road and Frostwoods shown near the bottom of the screen, with some existing single family was shown multifamily, and that was switched back to single family to show preservation of the existing character of the neighborhood. Same with the area by Gordon Avenue and Wallace Avenue towards the top of the screen. And one more area that was looked at was between Gordon Avenue and Monona Drive, across from the high school, which is the big blue square there on the right side, showing commercial depth to help facilitate redevelopment. So overall land use issues and opportunities, we are stuck with infill and redevelopment, and we want to maintain an appropriate balance of commercial and residential development, and appropriately integrate new development into our existing neighborhoods, and continue to enforce design standards for new development. So this goes through the implementation plan, and it's pretty much as listed in the plan with them pulled out per element. So update data as it comes along, study the housing tenure issue under the housing element, fund Renew Monona when TID 2 closes in 2018. Collaborate with possible jurisdictional transfer at the county, utilities and community facilities, review long-range facility plans. That's in red only because it wasn't listed in the actual implementation plan, but it was brought up at the last Plan Commission meeting as being an issue that we need to point out. Update the Parks and Open Space Plan, Forest Management Plan, inventory and evaluate new additions to the cultural history inventory for City of Monona landmarks. Continue to implement the economic development goals and redevelopment plans in the TIF districts. And land use, we want to look at the future land use map again in about 5 years since it's new, and evaluate it. And then in the shorter term, look at the zoning map to ensure consistency, and review research and findings from our housing study that will take place over the next year or two, and see how that impacts our land use goals. We'll update again in 10 years, and we'll see you then. That's it.
Great, thank you very much. Comments?
You did really good work.
Looks great.
So all of you, thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I said
Sure
last
that-
time, but it's a great did a lot of work. It's well done.
Well done, appreciate it. The one item you had up there in red, do we add that? Formally add
We
that?
talked about it last time.
Any objections? Can you go back to that slide, just to refresh your memory?
That was about reviewing the.
Reviewing the
study.
city's,
Flip back to the projector, please.
there you go, review long-term facility plans and needs. Sound good?
I feel strongly that we need to do this. It's a major issue that's been sitting out there. We paid money to have it studied, and it hasn't seen
We-
the need.
Collecting dust.
We've never seen it at Plan Commission.
I know.
When was it studied?
2012, it was completed.
I know there were some recommendations on there, for example, a location, a proposed location for a fire station, but it's not the location that the chief would, doesn't work for the chief, doesn't work for the chief, doesn't work for the city.
So really what you're saying is the council needs to work out what they're thinking. There's no point in us really even looking at it then until there's a
Well,
firm proposal or something.
I leave it to the city administrator to work out a
Yeah.
battle plan on how to do it, but
Welcome to Monona.
I think for tonight, let's make sure we add that to the, Brian?
There are elements I think it would be helpful for this group to look at. And it doesn't mean that we have to agree to any specific details, but the concept of looking at different facilities and the life use of those facilities and looking at next steps of what might be different paths forward is important, regardless of properties, locations. Somehow the feet have to start moving in a direction, and no action is not a good idea, even though we don't have to agree with any one specific.
But is it this body's mission to, or is this body tasked with pushing that forward? Or does it go down to a committee level where the Public Works has to look at it and say, we're going to push this forward? We've had a conversation that maybe facilities takes more of a lead in pushing that type of thing forward rather than this body. But again, I leave it to the city administrator to.
Agreed.
This is up for consideration of the resolution recommending adoption of the plan. So we'll need a motion for that.
Move approval of the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sonia, again, thank you. Very nice job, well done. New business, none. 7, reports of staff and commission members. Staff report regarding status of development projects and proposals. Sonia.
Thank you all for your work on the comprehensive plan. It was a lot of work over the last 2 years, and now the plan commission is finally done, so this will go to council in March. And I'll go over a similar presentation, but slower, because they haven't been able to look at all of the data as much as we all have. So as far as plan commission February 8th, I don't have any applications right now. But we can start working again on the sign code when we have some time.
So we don't have any, would you want to bring that before the group, or if there's no applications, do we cancel that meeting and then move that to the 22nd? So,
Yeah, I'll want to just double check that we don't have any applications or anyone that was going to get something in, and then I can send out an email and let you know.
all right. Thank you. Anything else, Sonia?
No.
Is there request for information? I think quarterly we look at that schedule that shows all the conditions. And so if we can get that on the calendar for some time, that'd be great. Any other requests? Seeing none, move on to item number 8. Is there a motion? Move adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Adjournment.